at the same time, we're kind of like, well, 30 wouldn't really be that much. That's like too bad. 35. Let's make it 40. 40. Hey guys, welcome back. So it's been a little bit. We've been at the shop getting stuff ready so that we can hit 2025 really hard. We're starting out early. We're getting ready for sick week. We've come down to Florida, Orlando, like we have the last couple years, and we are testing for sick week and for the year. Feel really good about the 55. The last time we had it out for racing was drag week, but Dad's checked it over. Everything's happy. Everything's good. So we're in Orlando. We might only get one test day. Weather's coming in, so we've got maybe 10 hours today to try to knock some stuff out. But we're here with Mickey Thompson. We got a lot of things to test. Sun's coming out, so I think it's going to be a good day. So let's get started.
This is the one they use.
Can you just try to trip him again? I already heard that Dad told me That's so cool! Oh, look at you!
Is that not the coolest thing ever?
Cool. Oh, that's awesome. Thanks, Jason. That's cool.
And Matt doesn't even know about this. I didn't tell him.
Yesterday.
1 day ago, yeah. 12 hours ago.
It's almost 2 days ago.
Yeah, feels like it. After today.
After today, yeah.
They're more tired today than they were yesterday.
Dennis and I really bonded today, though. We really.
Yeah, we
Share
had
your
a lot.
fun fact of the day.
Do not share.
We learned a lot about birds and regurgitation and stuff.
Just tell them to Google buzzards.
Yeah, Google buzzards. They don't have a.
You can bleep that out.
So they had a lot of fun sitting. Apparently, they act like they didn't have fun, but we would look like from the outside. You couldn't see that the truck was that much fun because like we're out in the rain, and then you just see like two heads sitting in there on their phones. Like
No, I wasn't on my phone.
oh, Dad was like this.
Snoring, yeah.
And
Okay,
then
well,
Ben's
my neck
over
is
here,
big.
like, he'll pull his glasses up every once in a
Yeah,
while
can't
and
see.
do this. And then Meg would just be in the back on her laptop every once in a while. Like, anyway, so that's how today went. That's not what you care about, but hopefully you're entertained because it's entertaining for us. The day before, though, testing. So let's do a quick recap of how we started the day and how we ended the day.
Well, I would say the whole thing started at PRI. I saw you guys were standing around talking, and somehow the concept of, hey, we're going to be testing in Florida in January. Is there any chance you could make it? And I think I was like, oh, crap, I have some other testing to do. Maybe those line up. And sure enough, they did. So I was able to come in. And
Just the whole wrong track.
Yeah, about a week before I realized we were talking about two totally different racetracks. I'm like, this is awesome. We're going to be at the same track. And then Dennis is like, no, it's Orlando. And I was like, really? I thought you said Bradenton.
Yeah, you told me Bradenton. I'm like, did I really? And I could make that mistake because I do that a lot.
I could have also just heard what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, I could
Right?
have
Like,
because I actually got off the phone and scrolled back and it clearly said Orlando on there.
Yeah.
But
So anyways, they came up with the idea. I heard them talking about it. And it's one of those, like, ever since we've gone to one of Ben's classes, I guess 2 years ago, probably. Something like
probably
that.
like, yeah, a year and a half, 2 years ago, yeah.
We've kind of like tossed around the idea of like, oh, we'd love to either bring out, when we were having engine problems, like we'd love to bring it out and like look at valve train and just like figure out a combination that we thought would work for the 55. But then like we kind of got past that point, which is still be cool, but like we're not in such a dire spot for that at the moment. And then it was like, oh, we should get together and go testing. And it was like, it is one of those, like, it never actually came to fruition, but it did.
Finally, yeah.
Finally, and it's been a really fun time, but two, like, there's been a lot of stuff learned, a lot of knowledge. And like, there was, as we mentioned a couple times in the video, there was changes made up to testing, transmission, gear ratio, and then the stator.
Tires.
Wheels being wider, same tire, but anyway, so there's changes like that made, but still, we don't, I mean, I guess we do know what the car was going to do. We made a hit with just that, just to get a baseline, because we didn't know what those changes were going to be.
No tune change.
No changes.
Does it need to be tighter?
No, test and tune is definitely the best part.
You turn the bottle on, right? I'm gonna check the tires.
had the wheel way up. Yeah, it's right there pretty good.
She didn't pull the chute.
Huh?
She didn't pull the chute.
What is it? 117 off of that little hit. 308.
17, about 70 feet.
That's what?
What about 70 feet to get there? Yeah.
No, I think I just brought it up to.
I smelled the smell. That smelled like a
Smells
drive
like drive
shaft.
shaft. Well, we do need to check the drive shaft because it smells
You smell it?
like drive shaft.
Oh.
But I don't know that it actually is. I shifted way too soon because I'm used to like shifting and it never came shift right. But it felt really good. Car felt good.
It was, you're going to be way further down. I can't believe the drive.
There's no reason it should be.
Huh?
There's no reason it should be.
Well, it just went down the
Except
track.
I can't get it in park, so. But yeah, I think there may be something in the shifter like before. Okay, so pass one, not bad. We got down the track. The thing is, I think that we very confidently have like a, you know, a tune that goes down the track. The problem is we want to go faster down the track. So like we've got something that I feel confident that is like, oh, okay, based on kind of any condition we're in, as within the constraints of what 6 week tracks will be, I think we have something that's a backup. So right now we're gonna get another pass. The only thing we're changing is shock settings in the rear. So we're going basically the max of what the QA1 mod series with this valve pack. I'll explain later, but basically if we do anything after this, if this is the right direction, we're gonna have to re-valve them, but that's cool because they're mod series and we can do that right here at the track. So anyways, made some shock changes. We're gonna try to make another 300-foot hit, 330, and yeah, I'm happy with the 55. It's only 117.60, but it went down the track and that's a win. And then the car was very, as you described it, very rigid.
Stiff, just really rigid. Yeah.
And slow.
Yeah.
with
That's
the same tune, it slowed down with all these changes, which I suspected it would.
Which makes sense because it's been, if you could real quickly explain just that percentage.
Which percentage are we talking about?
Talking about the percentage of
Starting
like
ratio.
having the ratio.
Oh,
it's like
yeah.
17%.
Okay, yeah. So when you changed your first gear ratio, we talk a lot about starting line ratio. So that would be, you know, your engine makes a certain amount of torque, but your ratio in the car is multiplying that torque. Well, you had, what'd you have before? A 210 low gear?
Mm-hmm.
So you had a 210 low gear and a 370 or a 373 rear end gear. So if you multiply those two together, it gives you X, and that's the ratio you'd have. So if you think about whatever torque the engine's making, it's multiplying roughly by that plus whatever converter multiplication you get. But at the end of the day, since you lowered the ratio in first gear from a 210 to a 177, it was like for the same engine tune-up, now you're going to be hitting the tire with way less total torque. So theoretically, if we can make the car handle it, we should be able to put way more power into it. But man, as we learned, there is so much more than just turning up the boost and putting power to it. So
Huge difference. And to that point, once we'll talk in the in-between steps, but ended up later in the day where we took this ratio that he's talking about, and we haven't had the car on the dyno in a long time. So like, I don't know for 1 pound of boost how much horsepower it actually is. I don't know how much naturally aspirated before it's making boost, how much it's making, but we went off of hypotheticals. And we're saying like, oh, if before we were leaving with this much boost, say hypothetically that's 30 pounds of boost per
30 horsepower.
or
per
sorry,
pound.
30 horsepower per pound of boost, and we had X amount NA, like finally later in the day we realized that adding, or he already knew it, but like we were going through testing this out, once we realized we could put more power, we finally looked at it and was like, oh, it would take X amount more of boost to even get us back to where we were. Maybe that number is 200 horsepower off or whatever, it didn't matter, we're just looking at it comparative, and it was like, oh, okay, we finally found a point where that would theoretically put us back to where. So what I'm trying to say is we had to add power to get back to where we were because of the changes that we had.
So let's
In-
talk about why
interestingly,
you
though-
want to do that.
Well, but interesting, though, did you? Because wasn't it still going about the same 60 foot that it was
It
always
was a
going
little
before?
bit slower. So we were 115, 116 before. Now we were 118 or 19
Okay.
yesterday, right?
Yeah.
So it slowed down a little bit. But why would we want to? Why would we want to change the gear ratio if now we got to put more power to get back to where we used to be?
Well, this is something where Dad did spend time. You can talk about why your theory was.
Well, because the difference in the first gear to second gear spread, we were a 210 to a 134, I believe, before. So whatever the math is on that, I think it's 0.6 something, if I'm not mistaken. And now we're 177 to 134, I believe. So now we're like 0.4. So it's a very close ratio between first and second gear, and second and third gears. Now a close ratio of transmission. Before it was such a big jump, you would have to shift so much faster in the second gear. You were just barely out, 60 foot probably. You're shifting the second gear, you're making a ton of power, and it's so low geared that you were actually having a hard time controlling the tire or the not breaking the tire loose when you make that second gear shift. So you're walking a tightrope trying to balance the power to where the tire was on the track at that time. And now you're not shifting the second gear until you're 100 foot out?
It was 2.3 seconds is what I looked at yesterday.
That's a good ways out, yeah.
And so then I want
It's
to
even
get,
further than that. So
so I want to get into in just a second how our day actually progressed. But I really want to go over to Nick real quick, talking about, because we spent time over the last year looking at how we could go faster, and we were looking at between the launch and the 8th mile, and we had kind of found, so I was telling Ben when he's like, what do you want my help with? And I was like, we have found the limit of what we can physically type in, what we can change in the laptop. We cannot add boost or change timing or do this.
I think you said something like 50 RPM was the difference
It was the
between
light switch.
going
Yeah.
down or not.
Blowing.
And
We finally found the launch RPM and launch boost that it would take, and then we started creeping up to try to add power in right at the 1-2 shift to get more power in before the 330. But then we started trying to add it before the shift, and we found that's when it got upset on the shift, like you were saying, and then it would be upset in second gear also. So it's
Yeah.
like we had just found out we can't put any more power in here
Yeah.
until something else changes.
And so like we were not really able to change anything until about 2.5 seconds into the run, 3 seconds into the run. Like we pretty much had it locked in. Like this is what this graph is gonna look like. This is the power that we're gonna make. There is nothing that we could do about it with what we were doing.
You can't speed up those short times when you just can't add any more
And that's
power.
where we knew that that's where we needed to work to get the car to the ET that we want. And we'll get into that in
wheel
a
speed
second.
down, basically.
Yeah, and that's where Dad, when he was talking about with the originally like the gear change, had we just done a gear change, it would have helped, and it did help. But that was like, it was like, oh, okay, if we can drag that 1-2 shift out, then we can put more power in and not upset it at the shift, because that shift is now going to happen later. But then we added another element to this story, and that's Ben. So.
Well, luckily it was a good day, because I think when I first got there was a whole bunch of people who were like, you know, who the heck is that guy? By the end of the day, I was like, who the heck is that guy? So,
And it was cool. It was good.
yeah, I think the biggest thing is like Dennis is onto something where the goal really, everybody talks in wheel speed, but the reality is we don't get any points for that. What we get graded on is vehicle speed, and so really, what you're accomplishing is two things. One, by the time you get to where you can change from first gear to second gear, you've now got more vehicle speed. Right? So you don't have to have, it's not so risky. But the other thing is a lot of people think about when you make a gear change, I'm going to go from this gear to this gear, so my engine speed's going to drop by this. But you also have to remember that's a bigger change in wheel speed, the opposite direction, right? So now if I'm going from a 210 first gear to a, what'd you say, a 146 or something like that, or 143 or whatever, that split in drop has the potential, if you don't have traction, to drastically increase the tire speed. What we don't want is a whole bunch of tire speed without vehicle speed. The car has got to be moving. So when you make those splits shorter, it's less of a shock in RPM of the engine and the tires. So that's not, it's like having small stair steps instead of big jumps, right?
Exactly.
And so that's really what you're able to achieve there. Ultimately, what we were talking about is like, well, we know what power level the car could leave at before. If you had an 11-to-1 starting line ratio total, or whatever, I didn't do the numbers, whatever they were. If we just take that ratio away, then theoretically we want to put that much torque back in the engine, and we'll just be back at the same spot. We know the car will leave like that. What I think the difference is we looked at it before we even started, and I was like, hey, I've been watching videos of the car. Mm-hmm. My perception is the car looks really stiff and kind of like not very happy. Mm-hmm. And so then I started asking you guys about like, well, what's this setting and what's that setting, and what about your shocks? You know, and you kind of had that like, I gotta check my notes. I gotta check my notes.
Yeah, we haven't got there yet. We never have, because we could never get it out past whatever 60 foot, because that 1-2 shift, we're in that, everything was right there together. That's where you're trying to transition power in, and you're blowing tires off because of the big shift change and the low gear ratio.
And honestly, we kind of, like, as dumb as it sounds, it's almost writing off some of those changes of potentially looking at them, because like we'll get into how some of the changes we made, but like
you needed low hanging fruit. I gotta fix the big problems right now, before,
Yeah, but when we got into actually starting to look at that, because it's like, well, we got to do something. We've gone to Chicago, and we had actually, when we went there for NHRA, then we had started working with some like chassis adjustments. We've been shock adjustments and stuff. And I told Ben even before we started, I was like, yeah, one of the suggestions was to loosen the front end up, and the car did not like that. Mm-hmm. Like it upset it. So but keep in mind, I just said loosen the front end up. We didn't change anything else on the car. And I was like, it didn't like it. Like, so like we haven't gone back and looked at that. So when we went out, one of the first things Ben said, we made the hit, got a baseline. He looked at the front shock data and the rear shock data, and how slow the front shock was to fully extend.
Yeah, wasn't it like 1.8 seconds or something?
1.8 seconds.
Yeah. So one of the things that I like to look at is, well, first of all, did you get to maximum extension on the front shock? Because not all cars do, right? If you don't have enough power, or if you got super strong valving. So did we get to full extension? And it looked like you were, but then it was like, okay, so how long does it take? And it was crazy long, 1.8 seconds. It was like, okay, that's part of the reason you're blowing the tires off. Because what will happen is, if I use my if I use my phone as like an example, right? So the front end works its way up, but all that time we're not really transferring all the way to the car on those back tires. So when you got, 30, 40 feet out, and all of a sudden you're having this huge gear change, and I don't have all the grip on the tires that I could potentially have, well, you're blowing the tires off, right? So the problem is the knee-jerk reaction of, hey, let's just loosen the front end up, has other consequences to the car. And so I see this all the time with draggers is, we already tried that, it didn't work. And it's like, okay, but let's try a little bit more of a, systems-based approach. If I move something here, there's a consequence over there. So where's that going to fall in line? And that's when we started saying, well, I don't know what's right for your car. I just know what you have. So let's make a change and let's see what happens. And so to be fair, like we kind of overshot that even a little. I think we went from 1.8 to what was it?
To 0.6.
0.3.
0.3, yeah.
Like the line went from
We
like
ended
this
up
to
closer.
vertical,
Yeah, and it made, I think you loosened it like for hours, it's by turns. You loosened it one full turn, and like that doesn't sound
We
a lot.
loosened it 1.5 turns the first time, and it made that difference. Went to 0.3.
I don't know. I'd have to see. I don't remember what the exact amount we loosened, but we've made a fairly large change.
But you wouldn't think, like based on how slow it was,
That it would.
that it would have the results that it did have.
Yeah, because the reality. So to clarify, what we're talking about is moving the adjuster knob on the top of the front strut, which changes the hydraulic valving and allows how fast that strut can change.
Can transfer fluid or whatever.
Yeah. So I think I tried doing, and you could go about 7 total turns. And so you're thinking, well, one to 1.5 turns is not a big change. Well, it was a huge change for that shock. And so it would have been a big mistake to go out there with 5 turns loose or something.
yeah.
Like,
All of it now.
yeah, exactly.
He's the first person that's ever told me something about shocks that makes sense. Like, at his level. Like, it's like everybody's always like tells me something. So, I think this is not the last thing, but one of the biggest things for me that I'm like, I don't have a clue how to touch those,
Yeah, but there's too many different theories, and I think that I can look at it and make decisions too, but a lot of that comes from experience, and I don't have it. He has the experience, like, trying to make it with the shock instead of the bar.
And it makes sense.
I'm all about it.
He said you shouldn't have to change bars. I was like, well, that's what Dad always says.
Did actually check the tires.
I'm just gonna start and let it warm up.
Huh?
Did you turn it up?
Yeah, a little bit. It needs a lot more.
But it looks like it can take more now. You know, like
it does. It looked like it was doing what it's supposed to.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it hiked it up. It did everything right. I just hope it didn't hurt itself.
Well, let's check that first. Well, good job.
Fine, third gear pressure's great, so.
You scared me. I thought you were going to say it was.
No, it's all good. So I don't have any reason to think that there's anything wrong with it. Like I
Is the
said,
temperature up too high? Do I need to put the fan on?
195 after sitting.
Okay, we got to figure out what's popping because it's done it twice now. It's like it's hitting a safety or something. I think it's over boost. Is the boost safety too low or something?
No, it shouldn't be. No, I think the first one was because it did. I think it was too hot. I think I brought it up to the rev limiter. So.
Would it have logged the burnout?
No.
Whatever Ben's doing is working.
Well, or Nick, he's got black.
No. Alright, so we are making good progress. The car is working much better, which was the goal, was trying to get the suspension and everything working much better. And then, so we're getting there, and now we're working on adding power because it'll actually take power. And that's something we've been struggling with, is like, it was at the max of what it would take.
That one's pretty lazy, so just take whatever you can try it right now.
That's the first time we've ever heard that. That's very exciting. So we're going to look at data and then figure out what we're going to do.
What have you been working on the suspension to help that? Tell us what you've learned today, Alex.
I've learned a lot thanks to Ben. So I still don't have this down. I'm probably gonna mess it up. But basically, we are working on all the shock settings. I don't want to go into detail because I'm gonna say it wrong. I gotta consult with Ben right now. But basically, he has explained to me and teaching me how compression and rebound, how they work, what it looks like on the track, as far as like when you see different tire patterns on the track, what is the culprit of that and how we can remedy that. And I'm learning a lot on that. So.
And you're learning it through the data. You're seeing it on the data.
And like one thing is, we had before loosened the front shocks, or front struts, and the car did not like that. We didn't think, which the car didn't like that, but we thought it was just
Before.
we thought it was out of the question before. But then Ben's like, but you need to make the front match the back. And so we've been playing with the back, and now we have the front where it's coming up, it's doing what it needs to, but we have the back working with it, so it's actually allowing us to add more power to it. So we can talk more in technical terms later, once I resync all of this data with Ben.
Well, you see who's more efficient at it.
Mine was tangled up. You literally started from an anti-tangle shoe.
Oh, it was the same thing yours was.
No, it was not. Did you not watch that thing come undone?
You wrapped both of them up after the pass.
Yeah,
So.
and one got totally jacked up. See which one comes out.
You got the easy ones in the air.
Yeah. So anyways, we started kind of there by getting it where the front end came up quicker, but we also made a change to the rear shocks. We started because we didn't know what anything would do. So after we kind of looked at the speed at which things were happening front and rear, made the decision to, because we were kind of, I think we ended up starting out maxed out, or like towards the
We were super soft compression and super stiff rebound.
rebound. So we're like, let's just go all the way tight on compression,
Correct.
yeah,
Yep.
then all the way loose on rebound.
Yep.
And so we're like, let's just make that big change and see how that affects.
Let's see what our window is. What's our measurement range from super tight to super loose, And so we made a couple of hits like that without changing anything in the engine tune-up, really. I mean, I don't even know if I looked at air fuel ratio the whole weekend.
I actually
I
told
don't
Nick,
think
I
you
said,
did.
he didn't look at fuel ratio, he didn't look at, I said, and it was kind of cool because like, did go to Ben's class, and I used to be really
Ben's like, I
scared.
don't even care what your tune. He said this. I don't care about your engine tune. I want to talk about shocks.
Yeah.
And suspension.
It's kind of funny. I remember I'm getting sidetracked here, but I have to say, when I went to Ben's class, Ben's like, "This stuff's boring. Like it's all the same." And I'm like, "Yeah, right. How can you say that?" And like the other day, when we went racing at one of Nick's races, I opened up. I think it was Colt's laptop for Johnny. I opened it up. I'm like, "This fuel table sucks." And I was like, they said, "Can I redo everything?" And they're like, "Go for it." I like cleared that sucker out and like made a new one just on, what you said, and it worked. And so, anyways, my point is like. For me, it was really cool to have been here, and like that's not something that we focused on because, like, I mean, I still don't.
I trust it.
know a fraction of it, but my point is it worked. Like it was cool because like it was working. I don't know if it's optimized, but it worked, so it's fine.
It's
They made a lot of power and it's still
It's
together.
pretty dang
So
close.
we didn't do that, so that was cool. Yeah, like it's the first time we didn't look at the vitals of the engine. We were looking at the car as a system, like you're saying. Like we got to look at things. Dragging this out, but basically we started by making a lot of shock adjustments and getting the car where it was happy on the line.
Yep.
And
Yeah, so I mean, and that was the approach. Like I texted or called the other day. I'm like, okay, look, before we come out there, so we don't waste everybody's time, what exactly do you want help with? And to be honest, I figured you were gonna say like, well, I want you to look at my tune-up, and I'm like, I was gonna say the same thing. Like, I already know your tune-up's okay because all the parts are still inside the engine, right? So it can't be that bad. I don't think that's where the problem is. And so when we had the opportunity to say, let's look at the car as a package, as a system, I really feel like that's when you got to go forward because it was like, just don't worry about the power. It'll make power when you turn the boost up. It'll, your tune-up's okay. How do we make the car do what we want? So we went out there and said, don't touch nothing. Just, you made your gear change, you made your stator change, you made your wheel change. Just go see what you have, right? And so luckily it went down the track and we got some data. Then we started making changes. And I think the biggest, takeaway or lesson from the day was make small changes and record the data and decide what to do next. And so I think too many times people swing for the fence. They're out there. I mean, how many cars did we see that just couldn't get down
a lot.
a crazy sticky track? And I think that's part of the secret. Sometimes people try to overdo it and you go, well, I'm going to make a shock change and I'm going to change the bar and I'm going to add some boost and I'm going to do this. And pretty soon you got 12 things. So you're not sure which one did what. And it was really cool to say, okay, we're only going to change the shocks on this round and go out there and it shows you in the data and on the time slip.
And to that, I want to make a point, something that I didn't think about, because something you always hear is like make one change at a time, so that way that you're, limited changes, that way you're not getting confused. And I think something that can be confusing is because it's like, this is where I would fall, I don't know about you, but it's like before, make one change at a time. Okay, I'm going to adjust one side of the shock. I'm going to adjust compression. Or I'm going to adjust this part of the, maybe something in the front. To me, the way I was previously thinking was like, that counts as one change. So let's not change compression and rebound.
Got it.
Let's change one. Like, I don't know if that falls the same for you, but that's the way I would think about it. And then Ben's like, no, if you're changing compression, you go this way with that. You're going to go the opposite way with rebound or vice versa.
It's like a series of interconnected and dependent events. So like if I do something to the front of the car, it's going to make the back of the car behave differently. So I really need a change, a shock change really could be front and rear, compression and rebound, because I'm trying to change the behavior of the car, not some random setting.
Yeah, you don't need to waste run after run on one
Right.
thing.
You know, wear the engine out.
But it could, like, by not doing those multiple changes at once, though, it could actually be a negative effect.
Well, you already did that, right? So you said we went out in Chicago and we just changed the front shocks, made the car mad, and we're like, okay, I don't know what happened, put it back.
Yeah,
Like, don't touch that anymore.
that was a bad move.
Don't touch that, no.
Yeah.
It's one of those, though, where I think for me, I think of it now, like, kind of like, and you said it, like, it's like a system, like, you kind of pick a system of things to
Yes,
change. Like, you
yes.
want to change your suspension, okay, there's multiple pieces of the suspension that need to be changed to work together to make that change make sense. Or now you want to change power, well, that's another change. Or, you know, so it's picking those things where it's not just like you're changing one physical thing on the car, but it's looking at a system of things.
So the biggest thing to take away from that, though, is that, you know, I was going somewhere a minute ago and she distracted me, but, you know, looking at it from a systems-based approach, it's like, so A changes, I'm going to make a shock change because I want the car's behavior to do something. Then when it was time to do a power change, you're like, okay, don't mess with the shocks because you know those work. If I change my power, how did it make my shocks change differently? Like, I'm going to compare that data. But yeah, I think it would be impossible to say change literally one physical thing.
Right, but I think it could be easy because where it's like
to misunderstand what that meant.
The thing of it. And so, anyways, once we had the car happy, and it was really interesting. There was a lot of people there that have seen the car for years, and they were like, "That thing's happy." You know, Jeff Lutz come up and he said that car looks so good, and it's like that's exciting to hear because it was like last year. It's like he's just like, "The thing is not happy," and I'm like, I don't know what to do, you know. But we're in this line of like where we had something that was working. Is working well-ish. I mean, for us at the time, it was working well, but it wasn't working optimal. And this year, so something really interesting is last year the best 60 foot we had a 112 60 foot.
Mm-hmm. Totally different 112.
We didn't go faster than a 112 60 foot yesterday. However, we weren't able to add power because the car was upset, and so like we could do a better 60 foot, what really mattered is like the car now, it's like it's happy at that 112 rather than being upset at the 112. So like we could put power to it at that point.
Dude, I mean, you guys, I don't know if you were on the starting line. You might have already been down at the other end, but like the starting line was pandemonium when that car.
Oh, no, I got the video. I was there. He's like clapping his hands. And I'm like, ah!
That's before the run's over. I see that this thing left and it's going, and it's like, we got this.
If it spins, I think just back out, don't you?
Probably if it spins hard.
There's no reason to drive it back around.
Oh yeah, if it spins up.
That was wild.
Okay, so that's like probably the coolest thing I've literally ever felt because it was slower mile an hour because I lifted, but like the car has never just worked as well as it just worked, and I think every change that we just made is this coming up to this moment is just killer. So first of all, that was a 69. Our 60 foot was a 112, but the crazy part is like Ben and I were looking at this and he said, we gotta find the edge because we're just creeping up on this. He said, now here's the thing, I highly doubt this isn't gonna work. And like we had the discussion, we're like, yep, not gonna work. We put 40 pounds of dome pressure, like quick. And that's a lot for us. Like I've been leaving on like 17 pounds of dome, maybe 12 pounds of boost. So I don't know how much boost it built yet, but he's like, the chances of this working are very slim. And I'm like, that's okay, let's do it. And I said, do you want to have a tune-up built to back out? He's like, nope, let's just do it. I'm like, you're right, let's do it. So we went, and like once I bumped in, I was like, totally left my mind that might not work. And I let go, and the thing was just smooth and straight. And then like I realized, I'm like, we're going. And then like it sat down, like landed an airplane. It's like, whoop. And then it just like kept going. I was like, I told him I was gonna lift, because I'm like, I'm not doing it. It feels too good. And I still lifted. It ran a 669 at 206. Remember, we've been almost 220, like 218, 219. So.
And that's your quickest ET?
Quickest ET ever.
That's your first time in the 660s?
Yes, it is. So things that we changed. One, there's so many things. Like I'd love to sit down with Ben later and we can recap. But starting off before we got here, we're running the same Mickey Thompson tires that we have been running, but we put them on an 18-inch wide billet specialty wheel. So that's one thing that we've changed. We also changed the transmission gear to a 177 from 210 ratio gear set, and we tightened up the converter a little bit, mainly to help us out on the back end. And then while we've been here, Ben has just taught me so much about like shock tuning, and I have absorbed maybe a fraction of it, but where we've got the car to is just incredible. Like we were at the point where we couldn't add power. Like I was like, we can't, I'm talking like 50 RPM was like the difference between it lighting of tire and not. And it was like, well, we got to make some kind of change. And so like we spent half a day working on shocks. Ben's really helped me like looking at data, and he showed me what this all means with the shock graph and everything like that. And so anyways, long story short, what we have done has made the car work like never before, and a shoebox 55 can go quick and it can go fast. So we have Sickwick ahead of us. We may get another pass, we may not, but I gotta get some data right now.
Yeah, it
And that
looked
was
like a real race car.
That was a swing at the fence, because you got tired of messing with little changes and you threw everything at it.
We got tired of it because it's 4 o'clock. The sun is setting.
It's
It's
getting
getting cold, and it's getting cold quick.
All the changes we would normally make had no impact on what the car was doing.
Changes
The
as in
stuff
power.
that used to
Like
light the tire, it
we
wasn't
weren't
doing
lighting time
anything.
because I told him, I was like, if you do this little bit, if you look at it wrong, you are
We
going
were super gun
to
shy.
blow. So we were really gun shy. So going with that information, we were making 2 pounds of boost adjustment,
Yeah.
very very minor stuff. And so
Which used to would have made a major difference.
negative difference. And so anyways, we're sitting in the trailer, and Ben and I are talking, and it was just it's so funny. I wish that conversation was on recorded, because we're sitting there talking, and he's like, we should, you want to swing, you want to do something big? We need to find the other, we need to blow the tire off, so that way we know what that side is. And so I'm typing, and I type, we had 25 pounds of dome, it was 25.
I think you went 17 to 20 and then 25.
Yeah, and at this point we're sitting at 25, and so we're 25. 37. At the same time, we're kind of 30 wouldn't really be that much. I was 35. Let's make it 40. 40. And then
And it was literally flip a coin, let's see if this thing will go down or not.
And so then we're looking at this boost car, Ben's let's just drag all this up. This needs to be 40. So we go from 7 or 25 pounds of dome to 40. And so we're I don't know if it's gonna make it. I don't even know what that's gonna do. We're we'll put it on. We're just kinda that looks nice. Let's leave it there. And so then we have one last thing where we had pulled timing, because we're trying to, there's a little spot where the tire would get a little bit upset just on the way out. So we're I don't know, 0.3 of a second, we're gonna pull 5 degrees and put it back in, or 1/10 of a second for whatever, it doesn't matter. Short period of time, pull a little bit of timing. We look at each other and we're I said, so are we gonna pull the time? Are we still gonna pull the timing? He's I don't know. If it makes it there, which it probably isn't going to, it's probably gonna go anyway. I'm
we went from 17, 20, we're making these tiny changes, and every time we go, we're it's just, the car's boring right now. And it's, so how do we need to go on the other side of this, it's so easy. And then it was well, when you asked that, I'm well, it's probably not going to move 2 feet, but if it does, you ain't going to need to take the 5 degrees out.
Yeah, he's it's going to go. And so we're literally look at each other
go for it.
Yeah, go for it. And not going to work, most likely. I'm already do you want me to just have my laptop up there so that way I can
You did
back
say
up?
that.
So do you just want me to bring it up so we can back up? And we look, and he's not a bad idea, but we should probably have another tune built. And I was we're like looking at the sun. He's like, you want to do it? And he said, let's just go try it. And so like I'm suiting up, and it's like, this is not gonna work. Like everybody's been informed, this is not gonna work.
So wait, I'm outside waiting for you guys to come out of the operating room,
Another
and she
machine
comes,
shop,
and
yeah.
I've done this for years now. They come out, yeah, we're gonna make this big change. We're gonna add 5 pounds of dome pressure. It's gonna, if it goes, it's gonna be epic, but it probably won't go. And it goes out there and goes. It doesn't do much of anything. So she comes out this time, and I said, so what are you gonna do? And she goes, we're gonna put 40 pounds on the dome. I'm like, 40 pounds? You know, we're gonna blow this thing up.
Who brought this guy?
Yeah. What the heck?
He walked over to me. He goes, "They're just gonna send it."
I had to go. Yeah, how much boost? All of it. Like 40 pounds.
The thing is, though, that wasn't like a haphazard.
No,
thing.
it was calculated.
It was like
Yeah.
we sat there and we're like, look, all the changes we made to this point, the car's literally laughing at it. So like,
Yeah.
I dare you to spin the tires. And we literally got out our calculator and said, well, if it makes, let's just round off. Let's say it makes 30 pounds.
Yeah.
And we did the math and we're like, I don't know. The thing is, like, because you'd never done it, it was like, this probably won't work. But at the same time, it's like, but I don't know why it wouldn't.
And as we're like looking at the numbers, this is where like when I was talking about earlier, and I think what you're talking about, this is at the point where we did pull out the calculator. We start going through these hypothetical situations of if 1 pound of boost equals this much horsepower, then to get back to even where we would have been prior to the gear
With
change
the 210 ratio,
and
yeah.
then we're like, well, then we would have to have X amount of boost to just get us to ground zero of what that was, or level playing field. So we did this math and we're like, well, then theoretically, it's not that much more power over what we were, but it's enough that before it would have not worked. And so like we were kind of going through this, like, so it sounds very like, okay, you just threw it at it. And we kind of did within reason though. It was like a very calculated risk.
It was calculated, but you didn't expect it to go. You
No,
did it to not go. You did it to see if you could blow the
The
tires off and then
I
pull
mean,
it
to
back.
be fair, I said it's 50-50. If it
Yeah.
goes, it'll be like, wow. If it doesn't go, it'll be like, okay, now we know.
Kind of the expectation and almost the hope at that point was that we would find.
Where's the wind?
Maybe
going?
not the hope, but it was bitching that
I
it
just-
didn't.
You really
do
didn't
that,
want to
but-
set yourself up to hope for something you didn't
Yeah,
think was
but
possible.
it's like we wanted to find. I guess I should say the hope was that we were going to find something out because we
Yeah.
hadn't found something out
Yeah.
to that point. So, anyways, long story short, like we go and like the 112 60 foot that was, and like the feeling of that.
Yeah, I want to know what was going in your mind. Like,
So-
so you let go of the button and you're like, holy crap, it went?
Well, so what's funny is once I did my burnout, I forgot that run wasn't supposed to work. I stopped thinking about it. And my mind actually switched to, I did my burnout, I pull up and I'm like, all right, like I want to build all the boosts. Like I want this, like I want to know that like what we're doing, I want to see that the data, like I want some data to bring back to this. So immediately it's like, I usually like try to work on my reaction time no matter what, but it's like I get in the first beam and I have a light that comes on when it reaches a certain boost number that lets me know that it's ready to bump in. I've got the boost that I want. And so we had it set like 12 and a half. We were hoping maybe we'd see like 20 pounds on like a boost on the line. We didn't know. We were just hoping. And so I bump in and I'm like, okay, I saw 12. I know it's at least 12 and a half. I'm like, this thing is
The light's
like,
on.
it's ready to go. And the light's on and I'm like, but if I wait one more like little bit, maybe it'll be a little bit more boost. So like I like wait and I'm like, feels good now. So like I let go of the button and like at that point like I had zero thought that this thing wasn't gonna work. I actually didn't even think like, wow, this thing's going. What I actually thought was like it left and it was like the most smooth, but at the same time the most rocket ship feeling. And even though it wasn't a different, like it wasn't that much quicker, it was so much smoother that it amplified that feeling. It was so weird. The most odd point was when I got out there. I've said this multiple times, but like I got out there and I felt the car just like sit down when it like, I was like, that was a wheelie, like that was cool. And so that's going through my mind now. And then I'm like, I told everybody because it was getting cold, I was like, I'm only gonna go to like the 330. I think that's what I said. Maybe the 8th mile. And I shifted like 1-2, and at this point I'm like, this is doing really good. And then I'm like, man, the car feels so good, it's so strong. So I get to the 8th mile and I'm like, another a shift light. Like, let's go ahead and shift.
Already here.
And then I'm like, feels so good. And finally, like 1,000 foot, I'm like, I told him I was gonna lift, so I stayed in it for just a little longer, and I lifted just so I could say it.
And you looked at data. Where did you actually lift?
I lifted at 6.3 seconds. And
Okay.
I saw on the data, like based on drive shaft speed, that was 220 miles an hour, and I went through the traps at 206.
Yeah, so it already bled
So
a bunch
that
off. Yeah.
came off a lot.
So I don't know if I told you this, but it was really funny. So when it left in the car, it looked like a race car. I mean, everybody on the starting line was like, "Dang!" It was like, you know, what is it like Friday? And they're like, "Whoa, yeah, dang!" And it was funny because after the kind of hush, you know, falls, and everybody's walking over to the little time slip ticket machine, and Jason from Mickey Thompson, I looked at him like, that was probably like 120, 60. But he's like, "Bro, if that was 120, I will punch you in the face." You know, like. And so the funny part is though, I pulled the ticket off, and because you took your time leaving, the reaction time was like 1:16 or something, right? And I saw that, and I'm like, there is no freaking way that car just went 1:16, man. I was super bummed. And then all of a sudden, you're like, it didn't go 1:16, it went 1:12. I'm like, wait, what? Like, it was so funny. I'm like, because I just saw that top line, and for whatever reason, I was
Well,
like,
for the
no
whole
way
day,
that
we
thing-
were looking at those short numbers. We kept looking at the 330 and the 660 and, you know, the 60. And I forgot to look when we got that time slip. I didn't even look at the 669. I already folded it up and put it in my pocket, and we're walking away high-fiving because the 60 foot was really good and the 330 looked really good. I thought, wait, I never looked at that. And I pull it back out, and it's 669 lifting, but it's only 206 miles an hour. That was a 659 or something.
440 to the middle, yeah.
Yeah.
You guys were looking at
Rushing
112,
it.
I'm like, you went 440.
And then it really broke out. It's like, yeah.
It's like a celebration all over
That's not
again.
even recorded because I didn't know that happened. Everybody was like, "That was cool," and then I went to go do something else when you got back to
Yeah,
bed.
like
so
there was
I
this
didn't even
one
know.
That's good.
There was this whole moment of like, all right, well, that's cool, you know, but I just remember being like, that's probably like 120. Which I was totally kidding, you know, and then I saw it, I'm like, crap, that was a 116? Like, and that was just direction.
I got out at the top end, and I was like, oh, it was the coolest day I've ever done, ever. And I can't really explain that feeling because, like, it's weird. It's not really that much quicker than I've been.
You were amped up though.
But it's the car. It's just like knowing like that car is working. Like there is potential in this, and I think that may be the most exciting part. So, anyways, it's like we could call it, and maybe a logical person would have. However, we wanted to know that like it wasn't a fluke.
That wasn't an accident.
It was not an accident. And we wanted to test, like, because it only built like 15 pounds of boost at the line, 40 pounds down, which we've gone through, like, discussing why that is, which we just have theories on that right now. But, so we're like, let's go again, let's raise the RPM and see how much boost that it built. The track had gotten a lot colder, even though
It was getting cold fast.
and so I pull up, do everything the same. It was a little bit more upset, track conditions. And
I wouldn't say the track was bad. It just was definitely not as good.
It wasn't as good. And so, I mean, like, the temperature was changing quick.
Oh,
yeah.
And so, anyways, it was a little bit of a handful at the top.
About 1,000 foot down. There's a handful.
It really
There's a
started
bump there,
about
though.
330 to
There's
600
a bump
feet.
there, though. I know there's a, like,
So,
1,000 foot.
so,
There's
like-
a bump.
We shouldn't see the door of your car from the starting line.
Yeah.
Or both doors. Yeah, that was scary.
Slowed down a skosh, but look at the 204.
Yeah.
So I was moving around.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
Still a
I-
442.
As I'm crossing the top end, thinking I just took out a cone, I'm like, well, maybe I should have lifted. It was only testing, and then I thought, if I would have lifted, I might not. Maybe something bad would have happened.
Yeah.
Like, it felt, long story short, what I'm trying to say is, yeah, of course it looks bad, and I could have lifted, but what I've had to, like, really teach myself with the 55 is, like, and when I first started driving it, because I wasn't used to big tires, I didn't know, like, you can drive through different things in big tires cars, and it's one of those, like, if I lifted every time I felt the car move, or every time somebody thought it was sketchy, I'm not gonna get a pass. And, like, the 55 drives really well. It's a really good driving car. But you feel things, you feel movements, and, like, I can feel, like, where through the 330 to that last movement, it's like, oh, it's still under control. Like, I know where that edge is. That last move that it made, I'm like, yep, time to get out of it. Like, that one's, well, but we still ran a 674 at 204, and I think I made the track twice as long.
Yeah, literally, yeah. It went 442 to the middle, so it was 200 slower, but I'm pretty sure you went 700 feet to get there.
Yeah.
So I think it was definitely not an accident. We pretty much backed it up, and it was like, all right, put that thing in the box before we scratch it.
Yeah, and 674, like, you guys know.
And remember, I was saying, like, if you would have reversed those two runs, the 74 would have been over the moon excited and happy. You know what I mean? The fact that it came 15 minutes after going to 69.
I was still ecstatic.
Yeah.
But
both of those are lifting, by the way.
it is, yeah. So wrapping this whole, I think this is gonna be
Your
a whole
outro became the video. So
That's it. There's a lot to talk about.
I'll do another outro for this, and then
This is the
introduce them
outro
to
for the
this.
outro.
the outro.
Yeah. So, anyways, wrapping this up, in conclusion, it's not necessarily that any of the ETs we saw were that much quicker, or the mile an hours weren't that much faster than stuff that we have seen. It was better. However, we have a car that's really, really happy. We have a personal best. We haven't found the edge of what the power takes, and we got so much knowledge on it that, like, it feels like we just ran 7 personal bests. But
And we went.
say.
Okay, go
No, you
ahead.
can say it.
We went 7 for 7,
Yeah.
So,
and we were probably the only car with doors there that did that.
meaning we made 7 attempts at a pass, and we made all 7 of those go down the track.
Completed 7 runs. I think Dennis is right. I don't remember if any other car there went down every single time they tried. I'm not saying nobody did, but man, if they did, it wasn't
Nobody
obvious.
I don't know that it would have been 7 runs.
Right.
And like the thing is, like, we started the day with a pretty sticky track. We ended on different track conditions. And so, like, that's really exciting because going into sick week, we're going to have sticky tracks, and we're going to have
So
tracks that
you
get
didn't
better.
actually talk about that, but during the day, we spent a lot of time just talking about how to look at the track and what are we trying to find and what should it look like and how do I adjust the car? Forget about power. How do we adjust the car when the track conditions change?
Yes, and that's something that for me, I don't spend a lot of time outside of the car. Like, I don't spend a lot of time getting to watch that. So, like, I walk up there and everybody's like, let's go check the track. I'm like, to be honest, I only kind of know what I'm checking. Like, I know.
Still there.
I know, I know, like,
Sticky.
yeah, sticky, and, like, I know the different, like, descriptive terms to an extent, but it's like, I don't know what those tire marks mean. I don't know what it looks like when it means when it's scalloped, and I know that this looks good, but I don't know. And, like, if you guys think that makes me sound dumb, you don't know what you're talking about, because, like, reading a tire mark is like it's
The whole science of
It's a
itself.
science.
Yeah.
And I know I still don't know that much, but my point is I recognize the fact that there is a lot of what that tire track can tell you, and I didn't know what that was, and we spent a lot of time, like, there's pictures of us on the ground, like, look at that. You see that line? That's what this means. And so, like, that was really cool. We spent a lot of time. And, like, I actually spent time looking at the cars. Like, Ben, Dad, and we stood up there and looked, and Ben's like, you're going to look for this. You want to see the rocker do this, watch the tire in comparison. And so we spent time, we studied a lot yesterday. I'm just, like, watching.
We went to school.
We went
All
to
of us did. Like, I was maybe teaching some, but I mean, I was learning from you and I was learning from your car. I'd never touched your car before. I hadn't
I've
even
never seen a car before, have
He
you?
said, is that
well, I saw it in
PRI or
Chicago.
something.
I saw it in
Oh, yeah.
Chicago, but
Okay.
the reality is I never worked on the car. So I think sometimes there's this expectation that people are going to hire you to come in and you're just going to fix everything. And I'm like, no. We got to start by reading the book. The car's the book, right? So go make some runs. Let's get some data. Then let's make a change. Read the data. Make a logical choice about what we think we should do. Change the car. Look at the data. And we just did that over and over and over again yesterday, and it paid off.
Yeah.
In a nutshell, it's not as easy as it looks. And you think that horsepower is easy these days. I mean, you can buy mail order horsepower. But to figure out how to make it go down a track every day and then make it do it every week on different tracks. I mean, all week on different tracks, you got four different tracks.
Four different tracks, but 5 different days, so 5 different conditions.
Yeah, 5 different conditions. It's just not that easy to have a 6-second car. It sounds a lot easier than it is. And we're just now, 3 years into this thing, where we can start working with the chassis. And Ben gave us a shortcut.
We got a accelerated course on that. So, in conclusion, I mean this
It's
time.
like the 8th conclusion.
In the final conclusion.
Sorry for the 2-hour video.
If you made it this far, thanks. No, in conclusion, learned a lot. We got a really good, we have a lot to learn still, but we learned a lot, and going into sick week, the car is got
Sick.
Sick. Haven, I hope you're watching that video. Sick. Really sick. He gets mad if because one of my people that I used to work with, he'd be like, sick, bro. And so Haven, our director, would be like, stop saying that. That is a terrible sound. So, anyways, sick. So happy with it. Thank you, Ben, for coming out.
Glad you guys invited me and let me hang out with you.
Was that a lot of fun? So
EFI University.
EFI University.
Never
yes.
heard of it. Yeah, so thank you guys.
What?
Yeah, so I assume not everybody knows who I am. My name is Ben Strader. I have a company called EFI University. I teach people about engine development. I teach people about race car tuning, data acquisition.
And now chassis.
And chassis. I mean, yeah, I've had some success in racing.
Like a bunch of Wallies last year. A championship. Yeah, we've had some successes.
Had some successes, but I really honestly just like helping my friends. And so it was cool to come hang out with you guys for a few days and learn
awesome.
with you and from you.
Well, it's been fun, and he has all kinds of classes. I am a big advocate of it. I say it all the time, but I have so much more confidence, and I don't think it's unbacked up, because I've been able to prove it to prove what you've said, prove what you've taught just from practice, and it's really cool when it works. So highly suggest checking that out. You have website.
Yeah, if you're looking for a bunch of magics and secrets, though, my class isn't for you, right? It's logic and science.
It's logic, concepts, and
if you do want that and you want to learn about engines, you want to learn about EFI tuning, you want to learn about race cars, then EFI101.com. Come see me. Come visit me in Arizona. The weather's way better than Florida.
it's great.
And we'll get you going.
Yeah.
And his YouTube.
And your YouTube.
I don't know what my YouTube is. EFI University.
Okay, yeah, we'll put it in the. We'll put all 3 of theirs in the.
We're gonna have to work on that, okay? So if you want to see,
If you haven't heard of me, it's because I don't know how to do social
if
media.
you haven't heard me, it's because I don't
great at
know my
marketing.
name, okay?
Yeah.
But if you want to watch his stuff, I'll put a link below. Nick will have video out from sick week testing, and then I assume going into sick week.
Yep.
So
Still plan on making it then.
Yes.
let's spend some more time in the machine shop. Mickey Bobby Inc.
Yep. Nicky Bobby.
And then Dad has prep videos from sick week, and he'll have a whole binge. You're gonna get a whole another hour of this, but a different topic.
I would like to know. It's 11. That's my cat. He's cute, but that's 11:35.
Oh.
Is that PM? Is that at night?
Yeah, because we talk.
What
so
time
much.
zone though?
Yeah, that's easy. At 11:35. Jeez.
We're just getting rolling.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get on a plane.
Gosh.
Anyways, so Dad will also have a video, Hot Rods by Dennis Taylor. He's had videos prepping the 55, talking about the gear set. He went into more detail as he went through the transmission, the stator, the wheels. So if you want to learn more in detail about that, go to his channel. And then after this, there'll be a video where we have a little bit of scheming coming up that we'll talk a little bit more about on Dad's channel. So head over and check it out. This is the actual outro. Now I'm going to make us do a quick intro and then an outro for my other video because this is a disaster.
Oh my gosh.
I can't keep up.
All right, as always, be happy, go fast, and stay pretty. I will see you guys next time.